Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Wednesday. We are joined by Gortz. You'll have seen Gortz on the channel a new number of times over the last few months and years. He hasn't been on for quite a while, so delighted to be joined by him today. And we're going to sit down and talk about Marcel Brands and Marcel Brands' future at Everton Football Club. In case you didn't know, Marcel Brands' contract actually runs out this coming summer, so he's within the last year of his contract. And I wanted to talk about why I believe Marcel Brands deserves a new contract. We're going to talk about all of the players that he's brought in since joining Everton Football Club. We're going to talk about the fact that he's on Everton's board, the fact that other clubs are showing some interest as well. So we're going to go through all of that in today's live stream. If you do enjoy, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Share the stream on social media as well. Don't forget to get involved, get as many people involved as possible. There is some news I want to talk about before we go into the stream. I feel like it would be silly of me to ignore it, and I wouldn't want to come into the stream ignoring the news. There has been some absolute dreadful news over the last hour or so that the footballing world has been hit by, and that is that footballing legend, arguably the greatest footballer to ever play the game, certainly one of the greatest footballers, Diego Maradona, has sadly passed away at the age of 60 years old. I was in the car driving home from work, just searching on Twitter, having a little look at what's going on in the world, and I was struck with this news, and I didn't believe it at first, and I think that was because I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that we'd lost such an important figure in the sport of football, but unfortunately, the more and more journalists and different news reports started to confirm it, and it is absolutely devastating news. Diego Maradona was, for me, one of the best, to a lot of people the best footballer to ever play the game. I'd never seen him live, so he could be the best footballer to ever play football, and it is very sad that he has passed away at such a young age as well. I was literally sitting in the car next to my dad was driving home, I was in the passenger seat, and he's literally the same age as Diego Maradona, and he spoke about how he watched him growing up and how he been to see him live, and that Diego Maradona was the best footballer that he'd ever seen in the flesh, face to face. And it is absolutely devastating news. And like I said, it felt strange even doing a live stream. It felt strange even sitting down talking about Everton, even though Diego Maradona and Everton have no direct correlation. We're talking about Everton Football Club, a football team. Diego Maradona, when you think about football, you think about Diego Maradona. He is one of the the figureheads of football. I know Gortz is wearing an Argentinian shirt in memory. Gortz messaged me a few days ago and said, listen, do you mind if I wear me No, absolutely not. No problem whatsoever. Wear what you like, come on and talk about what you like. But of course, this sad news has hit us, and it's important that we remember a footballing legend, and it's desperately sad, and it did put things into perspective when you look and you think 60 years old is absolutely no age whatsoever, and it's devastating news, and again it's more devastating news to add to what has already been a dreadful year. We had another little bit of another big bit of awful news earlier on today, and that was that Heavy D has sadly passed away. Now, you might know Heavy D from AFTV. He featured on the UK version of Storage Wars as well. He was one of the first football fans really to breach that gap between going to a football ground and watching his local team, and then coming onto a football channel and talking about it afterwards, to then breaking into the mainstream and being on mainstream television shows. And he was a real big personality. He was a massive part of AFTV and the growth of AFTV as well. So rest in peace to him. So not a great day for the world of football, to be perfectly honest with you. Like I said, the passing of Diego Maradona has shaken everybody, and my condolences go out to Diego Maradona, his family, as well as the entire nation of Argentina, because I know the entire nation will be desperately sad, not just tonight, but for a long time, given this news. And obviously condolences go out to Heavy D's family and friends as well. Just before we talk about Diego Maradona, just before we talk about Marcel Brands Gortz, Diego Maradona was a legend of the game, wasn't he? He was, it's very hard to argue against people who don't, who say Diego Maradona isn't in at least the top 3 best players of all time. And this news is desperately sad, isn't it? And when you read stuff like this, you just sort of, you have to sit back and think, life is life, and no matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done, unfortunately, it all comes to an end for everybody, and it's desperately sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, sad. Him and him scoring, all of his iconic goals he scored, and probably the most iconic goal ever scored.
Yeah.
The hand of God. And I was reading, I saw a tweet and it actually said that I'm hoping it'll be this is the second time, but hopefully it's not more. But back on this day in 2005, George Best also
Yeah.
died. So hopefully this doesn't become like a day for all the footballing legends to
Yeah.
to pass away.
Yeah,
So
no, spot on, spot on. You're absolutely spot on. There, ultimately Diego Maradona is, again, for a lot of people, the best footballer to ever play the game, and ultimately, like you said there, he scored the most iconic goal in football history. Again, everybody knows about that goal. Everybody knows the impact that that goal had, and ultimately, it's desperately, desperately sad news. So I didn't want to go into the live stream and just briefly mention it in the comments in 20 minutes time, or just completely skate over it, because it's massive news, and it's very, very devastating news as well. So I thought we'd have a little bit of a discussion about it at the start of the stream, and just pay our respects to ultimately one of, if not the best footballers to ever play the game, and of course Heavy D, who is a big figure in this world that we all are a part of. I created a football channel off the inspiration from other football channels. AFTV were one of those channels, and Heavy D was a prominent figure at the time that I was watching AFTV, and a prominent personality, and ultimately, it's desperately sad news. So, I thought we'd just mention that, of course, because it's rocked the entire football world, and rightly so. But the topic of today's live stream is Marcel Brands' future, whether or not Marcel Brands deserves a new contract at Everton Football Club. For those who don't know, Marcel Brands, of course, signed his contract in the summer of 2018. He come in just before Marco Silva come in, and his contract is due to run out in the in next summer, June 2021. So not long left on his contract whatsoever. There is a lot of important information to go through when talking about Marcel Brands. For example, he is a part of Everton's board, but there has been a couple of sides, according to the press and according to the news, that have been sort of sniffing around Marcel Brands and potentially wanting to bring him into their football clubs because they've seen the impact that he has had on Everton. So, of course, we're joined by Guts. Gut, before we get into anything about Marcel Brands, how are you doing, mate? How's things? How's life been? I know you've recently moved house. How are
yeah,
things over in Minnesota?
I actually moved. I'm actually now living in North Dakota, but
Okay.
I can still consider myself Minnesotan, because I still kind of have the Minnesota accent. But yeah, no, life is life is good. It's I'm trying to make the best of the situation
Yeah.
right now with the whole world. And
Yeah, spot on, spot on. It's difficult, isn't it? It's really, really difficult, and I know, obviously, I get the pleasure of being able to talk to football fans, Everton fans, and just people from sort of different parts of the world, and we're all going through the same things. Very rarely will we be in a situation where somebody from Liverpool and somebody living in North Dakota from Minnesota and somebody from South Africa and somebody from I don't know, Venezuela or Colombia will all be in pretty much the same situation as that. There's a global pandemic about that's affecting everybody in different ways. So, good to know that you're doing well and you're making the best out of a bad situation, which is all we can do at the moment. Try and be
hmm
as positive as possible. Marcel Brands then, Gort, I've written down all of the signings that have been made since Marcel Brands has joined the football club. Now, I did want to just point out that there's going to be a few players here that people say, well, that's not a Marcel Brands signing. For example, James Rodriguez and Alan have came in for me because Carlo Ancelotti is the Everton manager, not necessarily because Marcel Brands has picked those two players out at the start of a season and thought, I want them to come into the football club. Having said that, I do believe that every single signing, including those two players just mentioned, has to go through Marcel Brands and has to get Marcel Brands' backing. Same with Richarlison. When Marco Silva come into the football club, Richarlison was a player that Marco Silva wanted and put his faith in. But that signing would have had to have gone through Marcel Brands, and Marcel Brands would have had to have said, listen, I am happy to sign Richarlison and I'm happy for him to come into the football club. So, if I've missed one, let me know in the live comments, or if you pick up on one, Gorts, that I've missed, let me know. I haven't written down academy players. I've only written down players that have featured or are set to feature within the first team, because, we have signed a few academy players during Marcel Brands' time. And there's not really an awful lot we can sit down and talk about them, obviously, because we haven't seen them in the first team. So, of course, during Marcel Brands' first summer transfer window, Everton signed Richarlison, Luca Dean, Bernard, Andre Gomez on loan, Yerry Mina. I believe that was it for the first season. We signed 6 players. It was Richarlison, Luca Dean, Bernard, Andre Gomez, Yerry Mina, and I'm missing one in the back of my head, and it's going to absolutely do me head in. But we'll just go through them all as a whole. So you've got Richarlison, Luca Dean, Niels Nkunku, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Alan, Bernard, James Rodriguez, Ben Godfrey, Jared Branthwaite, Alex Iwobi, Fabian Delph, Jean-Philippe Gbamin, Moise Keane, and Yerry Mina. Now, like I said, if there's someone I've missed there, get it in the live comments and we'll talk about those. But out of all of those signings, Gorts, obviously you've got the likes of Richarlison in there, who, like I said, people might say, oh, that's not a Marcel Brands' signing, but it was a signing made whilst Marcel Brands was at the football club, so I'm classing it. You've got James Rodriguez in there, of course. You've got Abdoulaye Doucouré, Alan. You've got some players in there that people would argue haven't worked. Maybe Bernard, you would argue, over the longevity in terms of how much money we pay him a week and the output that he brings. People would argue hasn't worked. Obviously, Alex Iwobi, who would have done this live stream last Wednesday before the Fulham game. I think a lot of people would have said, well, Alex Iwobi really hasn't worked, but maybe that opinion has changed because we've seen him in a different position. You've got younger players, Ben Godfrey, Niels Nkunku, Jared Branthwaite, who look like real good players for the future. So overall, mate, over the 2 years that Marcel Brands has been at Everton Football Club so far, have you been impressed with the players that he has brought into the football club and ultimately the business that he has done? Not just in terms of the quality he's brought in, but the negotiation style, the fact that, we brought in James on no fee. Practically he was a free. We brought in Doucouré in a good negotiation and managed to get £10 million off his price tag. Same with Alan. Have you been impressed with the players that Marcel Brands has brought in? And ultimately, do you think that they warrant him receiving a new contract at Everton?
I mean, yeah, I would definitely say, he's definitely brought in, a lot of good players. I think the one transfer I think he forgot was his first summer was he brought Zuma on loan.
On loan, there you go. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, but I mean, I was looking and even from his first window, just bringing in Lucas Digne and and Richarlison, from first window, it's that, and bringing in players, and we can all say, like, the James and Alan were kind of Ancelotti signings, but you could definitely see that, like, he's definitely building for the future.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've just actually noticed when you mentioned Kurt Zouma, I've missed 3 loan signings. Obviously, Robin Olsen this season and Jabril Sidibe last season as well. Not obviously, not massive because they come in on loan and ultimately they've left the club since, other than Robin Olsen, who's still here. But no, I agree, you're spot on. Look, you look at players like James Rodriguez, Luca Dean, Richarlison. Richarlison for me has been the best signing that Everton have made since Romelu Lukaku, and for me is one of the best young players in world football. And if we can keep Richarlison forever, then do as much as you possibly can to keep him forever, because he's a fantastic footballer. Luca Dean, very similarly, brilliant footballer. But you're right, the signings that Marcel Brands have come in have ultimately affected this squad, possibly, and even the signings that you would say have been, maybe bad moves on Marcel Brands' part. I know some people would argue Fabian Delph, but if you take a back seat and look at the Fabian Delph signing prior to him putting an Everton shirt on and us making this sort of assumption that he didn't care about the club or whatever. Fabian Delph was a Premier League winning player coming in who had a prominent part in Manchester City's Premier League winning side. If you've seen the Amazon Prime documentary with Manchester City, he is a player in the dressing room, constantly speaking, showing his leadership. So for £8 million, I understand why Marcel Brands bought Fabian Delph to the football club. As it worked, some would say, he's done okay recently. Others would say no, when he first came in, he had the complete wrong attitude, fighting with fans and social media arguments and whatever. Again, you look at Bernard, okay, a lot of money per week and minimal output, but what Bernard can do on his day. He can be a very good player. Alex Iwobi is a really, really interesting one, Gort, because I feel like out of all of these players, Richarlison, Dean, again, I don't think anyone would argue against those being good signings. And Nkunku, one for the future. Decore, Alan, good signings, but still a lot to be seen from them. Bernard, yeah, you could put it in the bracket. Hammers, great signing. Godfrey, one for the future. Same with Branthwaite. Delph, maybe in the bad pocket. Gbamin, you can't really talk about because, let's be honest, he's come in, played 3 games, been injured for 2 years, and you can't really judge Marcel Brands off of that signing. And also, I think people have this assumption with Jean-Philippe Gbamin, and I'm not going to talk about every player individually, but I think people have this assumption with Jean-Philippe Gbamin that we signed an injury-prone player, and what are we doing spending that much money on an injury-prone player? I think Jean-Philippe Gbamin had spent something like 80 days out injured prior to joining Everton Football Club, and he's been out for something like 250 since joining, so he wasn't an injury-prone player whatsoever. He just has become quite injury prone since he signed for Everton because of a bad injury. But Alex Iwobi is one I wanted to pick out, mate, because he is somebody that Marcel Brands got a lot of stick for. Certainly last season, even going into this summer prior to us signing Alain Decore and Hammers, a lot of people were sort of thinking Marcel Brands, some were even calling for him to be sacked. Some were saying if you don't have a great transfer window this season, he should go. And a lot of that, I feel, was based off of course, of previous signings, but a lot of it was based off of Alex Iwobi and the price tag that he brought in for me. £35 million, £30 million, it wasn't anywhere near what the newspapers say. It's a difficult one, the Alex Iwobi situation, isn't it, Gort? Because he was brought in to play under a manager and a certain style. He was brought in to play as a number 10 under Marco Silva. Marco Silva then barely used him in that position because he wasn't a great manager tactically, and then of course was sacked. Carlo Ancelotti come into the football club and has since joined the football club, hasn't adopted a formation with a number 10 role. So Alex Iwobi has always been played for me out of position on either wing. He played right wing back, which was mad, against Fulham on Sunday, and he put in a fantastic performance, to be fair to him. Do you look at somebody like an Alex Iwobi and think that's a bad signing, or do you just think it maybe is a signing that doesn't quite work for Everton at that moment, but may well work in the future?
Yeah, I would, definitely say I think, at the time it probably wasn't good as far as, playing Iwobi tactically, but I think, now kind of under Ancelotti and, kind of he's, he just has, I think he definitely has, good potential with, with working under somebody, like Carlo, I think, definitely his potential. I mean, you just, you look at Calvert-Lewin and, you look at what Ancelotti's done with Calvert-Lewin and what form Calvert-Lewin's been in. And, you hope that, that he kind of takes other players under his wing and be like, hey, and, how to, play certain and really bring their game up.
Yeah, no, you're spot on there. You're absolutely spot on. You made a really, really good point. Alex Iwobi is a player that we probably haven't seen the best of, and I think a lot of that is down to him being played out of position. But you're absolutely you're spot on. You brought up a brilliant point. Look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin and how much Dominic Calvert-Lewin's improved since Carlo Ancelotti's come into the football club. Look at Richarlison, how much Richarlison's improved. I mean, he was a great player anyway, but he has improved. Luca Deed has improved. There's a whole list of players there that since Carlo Ancelotti has joined Everton Football Club have just stepped their game up massively. And on Sunday we saw an Alex Iwobi performance that was very much that, a player stepping his game up, playing in a position that he'd been put in and playing out of his skin. And I thought he was absolutely brilliant going forward. He was fantastic defensively when he has to do the defensive work. He done really, really well as well. And again, I'm not gonna sit here personally and write Alex Iwobi off and say he's an awful player or he's an awful signing. I don't think he was the right signing at that time, especially given Marco Silva just completely lost his head and decided to not play him in the position he was signed for. But I don't know how much blame you can put on Marcel Brands for that. If the club have gone out to Marcel Brands and said, sign me a good young number 10 who was it got a lot of potential and a lot of talent for the future, and Marcel Brands does that, and then that number 10 is then played on the wing and he can't play there. That's not as much Marcel Brands' fault for me. Let's look at some of the young players that he's brought in then, some of the players that you do look at and think you're one for the future. Niles Nkunku, Jared Branthwaite, Ben Godfrey. You probably put Moise Keane in that argument as well. Out of those players, mate, listen, it's still very, very early days for Ben Godfrey and Nkunku, even Branthwaite to an extent at Everton Football Club. But those three especially have been, Nkunku and Branthwaite have shown real quality, haven't they, and real potential for the future. Ben Godfrey, again, he's done well in the games in which he's featured in. He hasn't had an awful lot of opportunities, but he has done well when he's had to come in. And of course, himself has been playing out of position at right back or right side of a defensive three when he ideally should be playing as a centre back in a two. So in terms of the younger players, then Nkunku, Branthwaite, and Ben Godfrey, we've signed some real talent for the future. We'll talk about Moise Keane separately because I think he deserves to be talked about separately. But you know, you have to applaud Marcel Brands, don't you? Certainly when you think we signed Branthwaite for what, £1 million and Nkunku for £250,000, and these players have played in the Premier League and they look like they're used to playing there every single week.
Yeah, no, yeah, it really seems like, we gotta, build for the future, and, it's kind of at the time, you kind of, you want to build for the future, and then, kind of when, all the players, are aging, you start that process again as you look at all the major clubs. That's kind of how they go.
Yeah, spot on. You're right. You know, we have to build for the future, and ultimately, bringing in young players like Nkunku, like Branthwaite, like Godfrey is building for the future. So in terms of the players that some people would argue maybe haven't succeeded at Everton Football Club, listen, I've got the list in front of me. I am taking away Jibril Sidibe, Kurt Zouma and Robin Olsen, no matter what you think about them, because they're loanee signings. So you've got Richarlison, Dean, Nkunku, Decore, Alain Bernard, James, Godfrey, Branthwaite, Iwobi, Delph, Gbamin, Moise Keane, Yerry Mina. Again, sort of taking Jean-Philippe Gbamin out of there as well because of the injury situation. You may be looking at only Bernard, potentially Iwobi still, maybe Yerry Mina and Moise Keane, who there's question marks about. In terms of Moise Keane then, specifically, he was a player that was brought in by Marcel Brands, a lot of hype around him, a lot of Evertonians excited by the signing. Didn't quite work for him. He's out. He's now smashing it in France, to be fair. He's starting every week for PSG. I remember talking about him signing for PSG on the night that he signed, and I thought it's a mental signing. The lad's literally left an Everton team because he can't get a game to go and sign for the PSG team that he's probably not going to get a game at, but he's starting and he's scoring and he's performing. Do you think that was a bad signing on Marcel Brands' part then, or do you think that was sort of one of those gambles that sometimes you have to take in football and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't? And I suppose ultimately, do you feel like Moise Keane could come back to Everton Football Club and sort of get his head down and work for us?
I kind of feel, Keane is one of those that you really, a gamble, really, you get, kind of, maybe had, one or two good games. Like, I thought he did well, the one game that went at Goodison that I don't want to talk about because I just refuse to talk about.
Yeah,
But, and him going in and, to, Paris and, him, getting, playing with, Mbappe and Neymar, some of, currently some of, best players on the planet right now. And, kind of like, and I mean, you can kind of look at it like, him as, they are, elite creators,
Yeah,
and they kind of create, and Keane can just
finish.
yeah, finish. Whereas you look at um Everton, and I mean, you have Richie, who's I think he's one Luca Dean, just really the creative spark, and really, and then trying to to uh to bench Calvert-Lewin on again on the form he's on. It's kind of it's hard to
Yeah, it's hard to
bench
justify that.
somebody when.
Yeah,
Hmm.
no, spot on. And I think, again, another really, really good point. I think there is an element of disappointment, certainly from me, regarding Moise Keane, because, like you said, Everton had very little creativity last season. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say we had no creativity other than Richarlison, who, of course, we know what Richarlison brings, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin doing the best that he could. We had no creativity whatsoever at our football club. And there is an air of disappointment because Moise Keane has ultimately made a decision in his head that he doesn't want to continue this season at the club, and that decision's obviously been made on the fact that he mightn't be getting enough game time for his liking, or he might want to go out and play Champions League football. But it's disappointing because I can't help but sit here and think, I do believe that with a little bit of confidence, with a run of a couple of games, and again, I'm not saying take Dominic Calvert-Lewin out the team, but with a little bit of confidence and a run of games, I can't help but feel like Moise Keane, with the service from James Rodriguez, with the service from Luca Dean, with the service from Richarlison, I can't help but think that it would only take him a couple of goals to really get that confidence that he's got at PSG now, and to really hit the ground running. Again, that is very difficult ultimately because Dominic Calvert-Lewin is in world-class form at the moment. He is in the top 3 best strikers in world football currently, so it will be very difficult for Carlo Ancelotti to justify taking him out of this team. And in order to put Moise Keane in there, you would either have to do that, or you would have to find some form of formation where you play 2 strikers, and that ultimately would either hinder Richarlison or James Rodriguez. So I understand why Carlo is sort of sitting there thinking, well, there isn't really a place for Moise Keane to start every week. And I also understand why Moise Keane said, well, if that's the case, I want to go out on loan, I want to go and play football somewhere else. But there is an element of sort of what could, with this creativity, providing for a striker with clearly the quality that Moise Keane has. So overall, talking about Marcel Brands' signings, before we go on to talk about his future and his situation at Everton, and the clubs that may be interested in bringing him in, just noticed the team has done a little bit of one of these freezing sessions, which it does every single time we live stream. So let's give it a second to boot itself back up, and hopefully it comes back on. Here we go. I think we should be back on. I don't think it'll need a refresher. I think we're back. We're back. We're good. Listen, if you were here on Monday, you know the struggles of the team doing this. But what I was saying is, overall, in terms of Marcel Brands' signings and the signings that he's made since he's been at Everton Football Club, before we talk about his future and some of the rumours regarding his future, out of 10, mate, what would you give Marcel Brands' time at the football club so far in terms of the players that he has brought in? And I suppose as well, if you wanted to think about the players that have left the football club in that time as well, still a lot of deadwood to get rid of, but there is a lot of deadwood that has left the football club since 2018. So out of 10, mate, what would you give for Marcel Brands?
I'd probably go for just a 7 out of 10. I think he's really done a fantastic job as far as you look at where we were in 2018, as far as the squad, and how much we've improved each position under Marshall Brands. I'm very pleased with
Yeah.
how he's handled things.
7 out of 10. There you go. 7 out of 10 from Gort. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with an 8. Just because I didn't want to go with the same. But I think a 7 is a fair score. To be fair, the players that he's brought in, there's still a lot of work to be done, and I expect that work to be done if Marcel Brands gets a new contract and stays at the football club. Like I said, It's for Everton now is becoming as much about bringing players in to improve the squad. Sorry, as much about moving players on that are deadwood and that haven't got a future at the football club, as it is about bringing players in to improve the squad. So that's another big part of Marcel Brands' job, and ultimately the hope is that he'll be able to do that at the football club. If you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Share it on social media. Let's try and get as many people involved as we possibly can. So Marcel Brands' contract is up in the summer of next year, June 2021. If you visit the Companies House website, which in the UK, for anybody that doesn't know, is basically a website which details the directors and the owners of pretty much any company that is registered with them. It also details the address of their offices and various other bits and bobs like that. And if you go onto Everton's Companies House, Everton Football Club on the Company House website, and you click under people, you will see the list of the higher ups at Everton Football Club. And Marcel Brands is actually second in this list before Bill Kenwright, before Farhad Mashiri. He is just below Denise Barrett-Baxendale in the list of people at Everton Football Club, and he is listed as a director as well. So that's a big point to discuss and to think about with Marcel Brands, isn't it, Gorters? It's not just the director of football who is out of contract at the summer. It's a member of the board who is down as a director of the football club out of contract. And that's why I don't think there's been much made of it. That's why I don't think there's been much talked about by the club. Because for me, I think whether we like it or not, whether you want it or not, Marcel Brands is going to receive another contract. Ultimately, why would we bring on a director of football, employ him for 3 years, appoint him to the board as a director in some capacity or another only last year, and then 18 months later say, right, okay, you're going to leave the football club? Unless an absolute disaster was to have happened with transfers, which, let's be honest, it hasn't. Some might have gone a little bit wrong or, not like we expected, but it hasn't been a disaster. He's likely to stay at Everton Football Club, isn't he, Gort? And being listed as a director and being on the board, he answers to ultimately Farhad Mashiri, Bill Kenwright and Denise Barrett-Baxendale. He doesn't answer to Carlo Ancelotti. He doesn't answer to the manager. So the likelihood is he's going to stay, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail right on about, why would you bring, this guy in for 3 years and then, make him a director on the board, and then just, all of a sudden be like, okay, yeah, no, yeah, you can go, you can leave, and, we'll fill your position, fill your position, and it's like,
yeah, it'd be pointless, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It will be absolutely pointless for Everton to do that, and it will be a waste of time. And ultimately, Marcel Brands is a part of a project at Everton Football Club, and that project is about building and ultimately building the best club and the best squad that we can. And Marcel Brands is a big part of that. And if we were to sack him, it would mean that we would then have to go back to square one, especially in regards to directors of football. So yeah, listen, I don't think Marcel Brands is going to be leaving Everton Football Club anytime soon. There has been a couple of football clubs interested in him, which is interesting. Roma have been a football club that have been rumoured to be sniffing around him over the last couple of weeks or so. I know there was one rumour regarding Manchester United, which was come from an utterly bollocks source, so we're not even going to entertain it. But Roma were one that were rumoured to be sniffing around him, and I do think it's interesting that the longer the club waits to either announce his contract or to basically give him another contract, the more likely we're going to get for these different sources and these different rumours to come floating in about other clubs wanting to bring him on board and wanting to appoint him as a director of football. But ultimately, I think he knows his future is at Everton, and Everton know his future is here as well. And like I said, there would be very little point in appointing him as a director of the football club if you were then going to say 18 months later, listen, thanks for your time, see you later. It's not beyond the realms of possibility, but it's very unlikely. So there you go. That's just the little summary on Marcel Brands. We've spoken about the signings he's made. We've spoken about the impact he's had on the football club, whether it's been a positive one or a negative one. We've spoken about the fact that he is on the board, and that he's likely to receive a new contract because of that, even though his contract does run up this summer. And ultimately, look, just to summarise, I think Marcel Brands' time at the football club has been very good in the most part. Has he made some bad decisions? Yes. Has he taken some risks that hasn't paid off? Yes. But ultimately, sometimes you have to do that. For every Bernard that you pay 150 grand a week to for very minimal quality, and again, I like Bernard as a player. I do. I like Bernard as a person. I just think that we probably aren't getting value for money with him. But for every one of those signings, you get a Richarlison, who has been an absolute revelation. You get a James, who's been a revelation. Even Marcel Brands-esque signings, if you don't want to class those two, you get an Nkunku, who looks like a top player for the future, Branthwaite, who looks like a top player, a Godfrey, who looks like a top player as well, and hopefully somebody like an Iwobi, who there has been a lot of question marks about, starts to prove his worth over the next coming weeks and months or so. And same with John Philip Gbamin as well, who is, going to be back in training within the next couple of weeks or so, and hopefully once he's back in the first team, he can really prove how good of a player and how good of a buy he is. We'll get into the live comments for a second then, and then I know Gortz wants to talk a little bit about Minnesota, which of course is absolutely fine. Eugene says, breaking news, Diego Maradona has died age 60. Yes, we spoke about that at the start of the live stream. Utterly awful news, and all of our condolences go out to Diego Maradona and his family at this horrible time. Eugene says Ancelotti offers fitness update on Holgate. Alex talks about the Maradona as well. Joel says rest in peace Maradona. Jared says the best ever player I've ever seen. Remy says your volume is too low. It's because I've got a new microphone, and basically you need to be closer, which is why you can now see it in shot. I hope that doesn't matter too much. But I'm going to try and have a little look on the internet about how I can mess around with settings to make it louder. But the volume, the quality of the audio should be a lot better. Eugene says, I think Everton will beat Leeds 4-0. I hope so, mate. Jared says, there was so much more to Maradona than the hand of God. Just look at his second goal in that match. The whole Mexico 86 was a Maradona highlight reel. You're spot on, mate. You're absolutely spot on. Rob says, we'll concede at least 2 on Saturday, so can't see us winning. William says, Gomez and Branthwaite. In terms of Saturday, look, we have to be out of this. We have to get out of this sort of, I don't know whether it's a run of form, or we have to get out of this habit of conceding 2 goals a game, because ultimately we're not going to win a lot of football games doing that. Whamey says Cam doing an impression of T-Rex there. Didn't even realise what I'd done. Eugene says Sidibe says he had a proposal to stay at the football club. There was a lot of rumours regarding him at that time. And Whamey says, what was it, Eugene? Get good at football, we'll give you a contract. And Whamey says, where is everybody? If you're not enjoying, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. Does only take a second. Don't forget to share the stream on social media. Let's try and get as many people in here as possible. Abigail says, rest in peace, Maradona. Yes, rest in peace indeed. So go to them. What's been happening locally, mate? What's been going on with Minnesota FC? How was our Inchi doing? Our things? I know you want to talk a little bit about the referees in the MLS as well. If you didn't see, there was a bit of a mad situation that I'll let Gort describe in more detail in a moment, but it involved a goalkeeper being sent off in a penalty shootout, which was just mad. So how are things over in the States, mate?
It's it's good. As being Minnesota fans, we have, sometimes we have, we're kind of, Heath out, Heath in, and, you kind of get, kind of the Wenger treatment where you're like, oh, you love him at points and hate him. And,
Yeah.
He really has really improved this squad, even with, in September, we signed a playmaker from Boca Juniors, who honestly, by far, I could see him making the jump to Europe, because there were Boca Juniors fans that were basically comparing him to being the next Riquelme, and I basically say he's basically the Minnesota equivalent to James Rodriguez at Everton, and you bring that in, and then you just have we could have there's also a video on after one of his games where he rants, because you can kind of in the past Everton, as far as tactics and tactics wins you games, and he went on a rant about saying that what about tackling the player, getting up the pitch and scoring the goal, and basically was just yelling the entire, just walking around, and he was just fuming, and then it's because kind of the media over here, as far as soccer media, kind of consider Minnesota as kind of like the you really don't give us enough credit for like what we've achieved, and there I think there needs to come at one point where we need to take that term away and really make us feel like we can really be one of the top teams, and then can talk about the refereeing between Premier League and MLS, and it's
it's a
different.
fight between who's worse, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the worst one of the worst performance. I think there was a game, one of the playoff games last night. I think it was between Toronto and Nashville. There was a tackle. I don't know how the ref didn't get it was a the player kicked out right in the groin area, and the ref didn't even give him a yellow for it. And and then I think the main talking point was the one you alluded to was the Orlando NYCFC penalty shootout, when since MLS, we started our season before the 2020 2021 season came in, where the rule is, if on a penalty, if a keeper comes off his line early, for the first time he gets a warning. The second time that happens, he gets a yellow. But for MLS, we're still playing by the old rules, where if you come off your line, you get a yellow. And it was the Orlando keeper in the 90th minute got I wasn't watching because I was working, but he got a yellow, and then they went all the way to a penalty shootout. And at one, he came off his line early, and so he got his second yellow and red and walked off. And then Orlando assumed, they're like, oh yeah, we'll sub on our the keeper they had on the bench. And I guess, like, once you get to a penalty shootout, you can't, like, the players that were on the pitch after the 120 minutes
Had to be
are
them.
the ones that can participate in the penalty shootout. You can't sub, and so they had to have a defender. And there was, I think there were a few times where actually the defender actually came off his line a little too quickly, and the refs didn't do anything. And Orlando, the defender ended up saving, and Orlando went through. And Orlando, I think they already sold out, but they made a goalkeeper kit with the defender on the back. And the head guy for the North American Referee Association basically said on TV that, like, that refereeing in the game was the worst he'd ever seen, and basically confirmed that any of the referees that ref any part of that game would have no part whatsoever in the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah,
So it's
it's a baffling one, isn't it? I remember watching it on social media because I just read a tweet with a video attached to it, and somebody had said, "What's going on here?" And I watched it, and I was like, how can you be carded during a penalty shootout? I understand the rule about coming off your line, but surely it's just then a case of just retake the penalty, not throw yellow cards out. If that was the case, then there'd be about 15 sending offs every penalty shootout because keepers come off the line. That's it. It's mad, isn't it? And you mentioned about the refereeing standard, and again, at least the head referee, or the head of the association come out and said, look, that's awful and they won't be involved again. In England, it just gets swept under the carpet and they referee somebody else next week. Or if it's a certain club, they say they're not allowing them referees and then they don't. But it's mad, isn't it? The level of refereeing in Wales football, it seems, certainly in England, in the Premier League, and as you mentioned, in the States, is shocking. Let's be honest, it's absolutely shocking. That's shocking. Not only that you can send a goalkeeper off for coming off his line in a penalty shootout, but also that you can then allow a defender to go in goal and do the same thing. Surely if that's the rule, then that defender should have been sent off, and then that would have carried on until whoever was in goal didn't come off the line. It just makes no sense, does it? But glad to hear that that Minnesota are doing well at the moment, and that Inchy's sort of doing well, and that is part of the managerial game, as you said before. Some people will go from that they should be in the job, and some people will say they shouldn't be in the job, and that's just how football management works in this day and age. Certainly with social media, fans being very, very quick to jump to the old sack him and get him out shout without giving managers any real time. But Gorta's going to put that interview that he was talking about, by the way, on his Twitter account, I assume. His Twitter is in the description. Don't forget to go over and drop him a follow, and if he can find the link, I'm sure he'll throw it in the comments to this video. So you can go over and watch Adrian Heath having a little bit of a heated go at football, basically. So we'll get into the live comments then before we finish. 1878 ST, what's happening, mate? He says, go ahead, Cam. Got the notification and raced home in the van. Hope you're all good, mate. I'm good, thank you very much. Love that dedication. He also says, the like people, come on, I'm the 10th like. That's not enough. It helps the channel out. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, mate. Hope you are doing well. Think I'll probably be going the Asda in a minute if you're there in and about. Wayne says, good evening, chaps. Another Navy match this weekend. He also says, that penalty shootout is one of the maddest shootouts I've ever seen. There you go. Yeah, me too, mate. It is a big game this weekend as well. Eugene says, where do you think Everton will finish in the Premier League this season? I think we'll finish 6th, and we'll be playing Champions League football. Can we play Champions League football finishing 6th? I don't know if that's a possibility. Abigail says, rest in peace, Maradona. Eugene says, I'm Michael John from the Blue Boys. Blue Boys Clip says, love you guys. Like, share, and comment. Thank you very much. Just has been having exams and we lost 3 in a row. So sad. Hopefully you're okay, mate. Hopefully you're okay. Just Evan Botcher's back. How you doing, mate? I'm good. I hope the exams went well. Multipurpose says, just wants to say R.I.P. Maradona and come on, you Blues. Also says, hi, spot on. And Ube says, genuine question, do you think you will beat Leeds? And Wayne says, of course we can beat Leeds, but will we is the question. I suppose that is the question, and we'll talk briefly about the game on the weekend then before we finish up, Gorts. Big game on the weekend, Everton playing Leeds in the Premier League, 5:30 kickoff, 5:15 kickoff, 5:30 I think, UK time at Goodison Park. Big game, isn't it? Leeds are a side that are very, very good going forward. Quite shaky defensively as well, quite similar to us, you could say, in terms of being good going forward and not so good defensively. It's a big chance for us to, keep up the winning run, which is obviously was put back by the victory against Fulham. It's not going to be easy. We're going to have to defend an awful lot better. We can't be conceding another 2 goals again in this game because we simply will have a massive struggle to get something out of it. Are you confident going into the game? Will you be watching?
I think I actually, dang it, I think I actually might be working during the game, but I'll still probably, check my phone every now and again just to, just see how we're doing. I think it'll definitely probably be one of a really big test as far as, how our season will go, and it'll be a good game, hopefully.
Yeah, spot on. It will be a big test, and again, Leeds are a side that I think obviously were promoted this season. I think will comfortably stay up. And you know, like you said, it's a big opportunity for us to go out there and get another 3 points. What will be a big 3 points as well. So there you go. We'll finish up the live stream there. If you're watching in the live comments, big thanks to everybody for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Big thanks to Gortz for joining us. Really do appreciate his time. Of course, you can find his Twitter in the description down below. Go over and drop that a follow. We'll be back on Friday, 5:15 p.m. with the game preview to that Leeds game. We'll be talking about predicted starting 11s. We'll be talking a little bit more in detail about the game as well. If you're watching as a YouTube video, massive thanks. Get your thoughts in the comments of the YouTube video. And we'll get involved with as many of them as possible. Uploaded a little video late last night. It was about 11:45 last night, so you might have missed it. It was basically me talking about the news regarding football fans being allowed back in stadiums in the UK from the 2nd of December. We spoke about why this needs to be done properly, and if it's not done properly, it could be a disaster. And we spoke about why it's a positive as well, even if it is such a small capacity. So please do go over and check that video out. It is on the channel now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. Big thanks for watching. Like I said, please do subscribe if you're new. Gortz, anything to say before we finish up, mate?
So I know you guys don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but in the theme of giving thanks, I personally, I think along with everybody else, just want to say a big thank you to you for setting up this channel and giving us fans kind of a place to where we can share our opinions on the best club in the world.
Oh, thank you very much, mate. Really do appreciate that. Got me nearly tearing up here. Thank you very much. Honestly, means a lot. So yeah, there you go. Big thanks to Gortz for today and for that. Of course, you'll be seeing Gortz on the channel again within the next few weeks or so, I'm sure. If you've enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe if you are new. We'll see you on Friday, 5:15 p.m. Big thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.